thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank Mark Pinto for setting this up for us. My name is Laura Abarca, and I am the owner of Abarca Career Coaching. Does anybody know what a career coach does? So my job is to help you have a resume that is up to date, looks good, easy to read, projects your skills. I also write cover letters. I can take you through the whole hiring process. I am there to literally be your coach through every process. So that means looking for jobs, setting up interviews. When you go out on interviews, we talk about everything. What to say, what to wear. This way you are presenting yourself in the best fashion possible. I'm not happy until the people that I'm working with are satisfied. Now, in my business, I can take you through that whole process, or it can be as simple as getting your resume updated. So it really is up to you. Every client is tailored differently. So some things that I want to go over today. I know that we've got situations here where people are just looking for jobs. Some people are new to the job market. What's your situation, Michelle?
I've been at the same company for 18 years, so I was looking to make a change.
And what do you do?
I worked at a horticultural broker, so I'm looking actually to look for like remote type of work.
Oh, okay. All right. The hardest type to get.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I want to tell you about me, I've been in this business forever. I started my career as a secretary in a financial firm, E.F. Hutton. Does anybody know who that is? So I've been in the business world for a very long time. I do not have a college degree. I chose to go into work and to start my career, which was a great thing for me. People will talk to me about not having a college degree and will debate the issue about what or how my life could have been different if I had a college degree. My kids had to go to college. So after I left what was then Smith Barney, I started my own company called Laura's Executive Services. It was a staffing firm. Borrowed $5,000 from a friend and got the business up and running. We were making several $1 million a year. I was out in California at the time, and it was right after 9/11 and a couple of things that happened in the stock market in Silicon Valley that totally took my company down, which was hard for me to deal with at first, but you know, you get over things. So I have always devoted my energy to this industry. So I feel like I'm absolutely a subject matter expert here. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the benefits of using a career coach. What do you guys think would be a benefit? Don't be shy.
Telling you what to do to get what you need in today's system.
Yep, absolutely. I've given you all a handout here, and we can just quickly go through this because I think that there are things maybe that some people don't think about. You will learn critical skills required in today's work environment. So if you're a little light on what is required in today's skills, conversation that we had earlier, this would be a place where I could jump in and make some suggestions. I definitely want to talk to people about building your confidence and your value. What do you bring to a company? So if you were laid off, you may not be feeling so great about things, but you have a lot of experience and you can take that to another company. So talking about what you really want to do and what your experience is and being able to project that to a new company in an interview is critical. You want to make informed decisions, making sure that you're not going after a position that is really not what you want to do, but you take it because they offered it. Bad decision there. One of the most important things is building connections. Who here has a LinkedIn page? Everybody? We're gonna have you make a LinkedIn page, okay? Really important. 500, they say, is the magic number in terms of connections. So, because I have a son who just recently graduated from college, I created a LinkedIn page for him, and I know what area of business he wanted to go into, so I just started sending invitations on LinkedIn. And he now has, 400 and something connections and people who could actually help him if he needs that.
I don't have one, I thought you said a big page, so I don't.
Okay,
answer that.
we'll-
I was looking into it.
We'll take care of that. The other thing is if you're gonna launch into a new career, with us doing the research on that and making sure that you're ready for that kind of challenge, that's another thing that a career coach can help you with. Preparing for interviews. If I don't say anything else that you hear tonight, it is that. You must prepare when you go on interviews. This means getting the names of the people that you're interviewing with, look them up on LinkedIn, what's their background. You try to find some common ground with the people that you will be talking to. So, for example, if I'm a person who's former military and I find out that the person I'm interviewing with is former military, you have a connection there. Or if I played football in college and that person played football in college, that little tiny piece of information. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
There's a seat up here. So finding that thing that can actually connect you while you're speaking with your interviewer. Thanks. The other thing is going on Google and finding out everything you can about the company. You want to be sharp, you want to be on your game when you're interviewing. So the more knowledge that you give yourself about the company, the positions, the people who work there, learn about the CEO. Ask a question about the CEO. These are things that will give you a leg up, so to speak, in the interviewing process. Hi. Does anybody have any questions? Did everybody already know all that stuff? You need to have what they call an elevator pitch. Something short and concise, to the point in regard to what you're looking for. And this will be your staple because I absolutely encourage networking. So if you have a business card, make sure you have them with you all the time. You want to make connections everywhere you go. Most jobs, people get most jobs by someone they know. So that's them referring you. So that is very, very important. It's, again, the whole connection. You see how everything is, yeah? The whole thing is connections, talking to people, very, very helpful. So crafting your story is something that you should be able to tell somebody in an elevator ride. So that's short and sweet. So your job is to put together your elevator story. Okay? Does everybody here have a resume? What are you finding to be your challenge right now?
Putting it together,
Yeah.
keeping it to one page.
You know what? That is an old wives' tale. What do you do for a living?
A lot of different things. Right now it's admin work.
Okay. So don't be afraid to go to 2 or 3 pages. What you don't want to do in writing your resume is to put any personal information on your resume. Don't even put your street address. You can put your city and state phone number, email address. Don't put your street address. Don't put your age. Don't put that you're married. Don't put that you have 2 sons. Nothing that could actually take you out of the running before you even had a chance to talk to somebody. Most companies nowadays have applicant tracking systems. So they look for things exactly like that. When it gets uploaded into the system, if you've got personal information on there, the system will kick it out. They will look at that. So you don't want to be behind the 8 ball before you even get started. So I would recommend, if anybody here has any of that information on your resumes, to get rid of it. Don't be afraid to go to 2 or 3 pages. But I don't want to know that you graduated in high school in 1940 and every job you've had since. Go back 10 years. So for you,
One job.
yeah, so for you ladies, it would be your one position, and then the rest is gonna be really exciting filler. So I gave everybody my business card because I would like to help you guys, and I can do that at a very, very reduced cost. It would just be my time. But we can talk about that later. I mean, it's not something I want to really get into right now, but my job here tonight, I feel, is to help everyone put together, do some research, get something solid that you feel comfortable with so you can start looking for positions and actually getting your resume out there. And again, I'll be there the whole way if that's what you like. Yeah, the print on this stuff is so small. Okay, so let's talk about resumes a little bit more. A resume is called a CV, or an executive bio, or a resume. So there are things that you need to be thinking about when putting together your resume. So looks matter. It's the first impression. Now, I mentioned to you about the applicant tracking systems. A lot of times, once you upload your resume, they don't actually see your resume. So the pretty pictures and the blocks and all that stuff that you can get on like Microsoft, not really necessary, but if you like it, that's fine, because it's going to update and parse your information into their system. That makes sense? Here's something that's up for debate. Do you put an objective? Used to be that you always put in an objective, and then it kind of became old news, I guess, and I recommend putting in an objective. Now, that objective should be interchangeable for positions that you're applying for. So if it's for an admin in an advertising company, you would put that in there, but if you're doing it for an accounting firm, make sure that you can change that up. So your resume should be able to fit every job that you're applying for. Make sense? The other thing is sometimes people are afraid to actually talk about their value on their resume. Like you talked about how you want something specific, right? So making sure that the value that you have brought to other companies is clearly stated in your resume. And that can be done a couple of different ways. Either reference letters or within the actual resume itself. I'm a big fan of bullet points on resumes because it's so much easier to read. My day job, I'm a recruiter for a government contractor. So I have 30 open requisitions at any given time. And I get literally hundreds of resumes. So reading resumes has become a fine art for me. So pleasing to the eye is always good. You have, I think it's like 8 seconds to capture the attention of a hiring manager. So past your name, what are you gonna say? This is why I like objectives on a resume. So that you can kind of open up with something exciting. As best you can, you know? So I have been employed at the same job for 5 years. I keep my resume updated all the time. So if I get a new certification or if I get new skills, computer skills, that's put on my resume immediately. Because it's important to me that if I am sharing my resume with someone, that it's very up to date and that it shows that I have the newest skills. And that's something else we talked about briefly here. So having the best skills, the most up-to-date skills, will help in a job search. So as an admin, you want to have Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Do you use PowerPoint?
No, I use Prezi instead.
So those are things that we can talk about when putting together your resume. Let's see. Yeah, one of the things that I find a lot is that people say, well, I like my resume like that. I've always done it that way and had a job for 20 years. Well, that's great, but we want to get you noticed. So sometimes being open to change about your resume is really, really important. Your resume is your calling card. It's the first thing employers see, and it's the thing that's going to get you into the front door. And then your shining personality can come out in your interview, but we want to make sure that your resume speaks volumes. Who here feels like they need to tweak, update their resume? Okay.
Nothing.
Yeah. It's a really interesting market out there right now. There were times when people would be looking for a job, but nobody was hiring. We are in a candidate market right now. So people are basically writing their own tickets depending on what industry you work in. So you've got people that are vying for the same job and trying to write their own tickets at the same time. So being competitive in the market is critical. You don't ever want to undersell yourself, because then people go, okay, well, she's asking for $5 less an hour. What's wrong with that? So understanding your value, something that we talked about earlier, is critical. You need to know and be confident about your resume, about what you do, and what you can bring to that new company. Does anybody have any questions? No?
So right now my resume is mostly admin work, some nonprofit stuff. I'd like to transition into more full-time nonprofit work, but right now my resume looks like I'm in my mid to late 20s maybe. It doesn't show that I necessarily have the capacity, even though I've done that stuff before.
Do you volunteer?
A little, we just moved here.
So signing up with an organization to volunteer, I think would help in your resume without seeing your resume. It's a suggestion that I might make. Because that would be something that you could talk to an employer about, a potential employer, and those skills are transferable.
Mhm.
You're just doing it for free as a volunteer. So that might be an avenue that you could look into. Yes.
Would that be considered job experience?
Of volunteering?
Right.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. If you're, whether you're feeding the homeless, all of these tap into a skill level that you have. Speaking to people, dealing with people, conflict. So all of these are relatable, transferable skills to real-world employment. So don't discount the things that you have done as a volunteer or the things that you are doing right now. So we've got a group that understands or has LinkedIn. What are the benefits of having a LinkedIn? Are you active on your LinkedIn?
I'm just updating.
So this is one of the other areas.
For years, but it's not updating.
This is one of the other areas that I think is really important. And it's called branding. You need to brand yourself. You're in advertising, you know what I'm talking about. People pay to make sure that their items are branded, that this look goes with you. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn page matches your resume, and so on, continuity all the way through. The first thing I would say in terms of branding, who here has Facebook? If a potential employer went onto your Facebook, is it pictures of you holding beers or something along those lines that, you know, is good for your friends, but you don't really want a potential employer to see? Most employers 90% of the employers go on to social media to track you. Because you can present yourself great in an interview, your resume looks good, and then they go on to Facebook or Instagram and, you know, you're just a party person or something that would give them pause. So the first thing I tell my clients is to clean up your social media. If you look at something that's on there and you think that it might be detrimental to getting a job, get it off, delete it. So who's gonna do that tonight? There are other social media accounts as well. Does anybody use Twitter? Instagram? Everybody use Google? You have a Gmail account? So everybody's got a Gmail account? Is it your first name and your last name, or your first name, middle initial?
You'd never know it was me.
Well, if you have a Mary loves to bake at gmail.com, you need to get rid of that. You need to have something that's professional. If you have an AOL account, get rid of it. Because employers will look at that and say, okay, this person isn't up on technology. So it is something that is looked at, and people have actually not gotten jobs for that reason. So Yahoo is another no.
Hotmail.
Hotmail is another no. Honestly, Google is the best thing for you to, or Gmail is the best thing. So everybody needs to,
I have Verizon.
yeah, that would be fine.
Comcast is-
Yeah. Yeah, that is not, nobody would look at that as being weird.
Doesn't Verizon use AOL now?
Yeah, but not everybody knows that. It's still at .verizon.net or at Verizon.net.
And the same with Comcast. It's the same thing, Comcast.net, I think. So, I want to talk to you guys about what it is that you think that you need to do. When you look at your resume, what is it that makes you go, why are you here?
I'm here because I got laid off after almost 29 years, and I'm just getting my feet wet again.
So ready to
Do I
get,
want to do what I was doing before? Not necessarily.
okay, so we want to update your resume, and we want to really explore the next part of your career. And doing research and really understanding where you are it will be very helpful in your career search. Somebody else?
I would like to check out my options for what I have to do besides what I think or thought I was good at. I don't know if I'm still good at it.
Absolutely. Again, we have transferable skills. So you and I would sit down and we would talk about what are your skills, and then what are the different industries, the different types of positions that we think you could move into without a whole lot of hubbub, so to speak. So that's where we would start. And then that would dictate what we put on your resume. So, part of what I do, so after I write the cover letter, and after we write the cover letter, and after we take care of your resume, and doing the research and getting some resumes out there, once you go on interviews, we would regroup after that, so you could tell me how you thought that went. 99% of candidates who go on an interview think it went well. So you should walk in there confident, ready to do this, and feel like it went well. But really, when you leave there, try to break it down for yourself. You know, what questions did I get hung up on, if any? Most hiring managers now use behavioral questions when interviewing. So it's not a yes or no answer anymore. Most of them use what they call the STAR method. And it's situational, and they want to have you give them examples.
Just the worst.
Once you get it down, it's really easy. So if you all don't mind checking out online what the STAR method actually is. And there are, which I can provide to you, 50 behavioral questions that are the most asked questions so that you can tailor the answer. And this is another piece of you doing your research so that you can tailor it to the company and the position that you're going to be talking to. That make sense? So, STAR method. I'm going to use the example of my son who just graduated from college. He and I went through, okay, the resume, the cover letter. He went on his first interview, which was probably the biggest interview that he will ever go on in his life. And he walked out of there feeling awful. The hiring person was ex-military, so really strict. They interviewed him on a Sunday in a hotel at the restaurant. So that just like threw him off a little bit. And then they asked him behavioral questions about exactly, tell me how you handled this situation. And being straight out of college and only having a few internships, he didn't have really the background or the experience to answer those questions. And then he went on a couple of more interviews that were the same way, and in the end, he got to be really good about it. It was like no big deal after a while. So knowing those questions beforehand, the most commonly asked questions, I think will be really helpful for you. So you all have my business card. If you want those questions, let me know. Send me an email, and I'll get those over to you. Okay? Who here has a cover letter? Nobody else? Everybody's.
Don't you create cover letters as you go?
Not everybody does a cover letter. I encourage cover letters.
I use cover letters, but I don't have standard,
You should have a standard.
because not one, to me, not one should be the same for every job.
Well, I have a few that you could take a look at and see if something speaks to you. So yes, use cover letters. This gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit. And you want to highlight your specific skills. Does everybody feel like they're really confident in expressing their strengths and weaknesses? Because that's absolutely a question you're gonna get asked. How do you guys feel about that? So part of what I do is also mock interviewing. So we'll sit down, and a lot of companies do a phone screen first and then an in-person interview if you pass the phone screen. So for both, we will do mock interviewing. And this will set you up to feel more comfortable when you're actually dressed up and you've got your resume. And everybody have a briefcase? No?
Or clothes. I wear jeans every day to work.
Yeah, me too now too. So, I don't know if you guys belong to the yard sales or anything like that, but I would definitely see if you could pick up a laptop or a laptop case or a briefcase. Always looks really good going into an interview. Doesn't matter if you're going in for an admin position or any other type of position. You're walking in there and you're confident about this job, this company, and getting this position.
And doesn't it also give you something to hold so you don't do awkward things with your hands?
Yes. Yes. So, one of the things that you want to do when you're in the interviewing process, sometimes you will have a one-on-one. Sometimes you will actually meet with the whole team and they bring you into a conference room. Either way, you just focus on the person who's talking to you and pretend there's nobody else in the room. Or if you're more animated like me, make eye contact with everybody. So again, presentation of yourself, not only on paper, but your personal being has to exude confidence. You've been in the same position for 20 years. You know what you know. Nobody's gonna take that away from you. So that is very important. What you wear, I would not recommend jeans. I would not recommend too much makeup for women. You want to be a little bit vanilla, I guess, in your appearance. You want to kind of blend in so that they can actually visualize you in that position, in the role. So, has anybody here gone on interviews recently? Tell us about it.
I had one today for actually a machinist position in the warehouse. Took me on a tour of the warehouse first, showed me all the machinery, how various things worked, made a little bit of light conversation about warehouses in general, brought me into a conference room, did a more regular interview, asked a couple of the star questions. The ones I always hear are, what's an example of a like workplace conflict that, and how did you handle it? I get that one a lot, or like a particularly challenging thing that you had to do, and how did you handle it?
Those are two very common questions, by the way. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've had like a couple of like interviews or interview type things in the last few weeks, and those two questions in particular I've gotten asked every single time. Like, the third or fourth question is sometimes different, but I always get those two. Like.
So, how many people did you meet with?
The only person that I talked to at length was him. I believe he was just a manager, not a.
Was he the decision maker, or do you have to go back for another interview?
No, he was the decision maker. Though I don't think he was a hiring manager. I think he was just the manager, and he happened to be doing the interview.
So is he the person who can make the decision to hire you?
Yes.
Okay. So if you can scope out that person, that's when you really kind of turn it on. You want to get through every interview in the process. But when you get to the hiring person, the person who can make the decision, this is where you want to have all your answers to the STAR questions, where you want to really, really shine. Because that person can do exactly that. They can determine your fate with that company. So, how many how many interviews have you gone on? Couple?
Just a couple in the past 2 weeks,
When you leave, do you kind of replay the interview?
I tried to.
And do you feel that you come up with some areas that you go, God, I wish I would have said that, or I wish I didn't say that?
Sometimes it's hard to differentiate between like just being too hard on yourself versus like, no, you really should have had a better answer for that, or like had it quicker, like.
Okay, but these are things that you learn and you take to your next interview in the event that you don't get the job. So how did I answer that question? How should I have? So if you feel like you kind of didn't go in the right direction, then chances are you probably didn't. So, reevaluating that and then putting together an answer, I think would be helpful. The hiring process right now is probably a little long, I would think. Maybe, a phone interview, potentially 2 other interviews, one with, maybe the direct manager, and then one with the team. So be prepared for that. Have you sent thank you letters, thank you notes, thank you emails?
No, I haven't been doing that yet.
Okay. Always make sure that you grab a business card for everybody that you talk to. And a thank you email is absolutely acceptable. But if you can do a thank you note, because it's something that used to happen and doesn't happen anymore, when hiring managers get them, they're like thrilled. Like, oh, somebody took the time to, do this. It's old school, but it works. What else do you want to cover? You guys ask me some questions. I can give you my best answer.
Do you recommend those resume that help you make them up on the computer? Because I don't have Word or anything, I guess I'm gonna have to invest in it because I haven't used it. But I went on my resume or whatever, and they help me
To pay for it?
Well, it says free, but at the end, then they want your credit card.
Yeah.
So I started it, and then I had to think about it, so I didn't know.
Here's my theory on that. In my business, I charge $30 to do a resume. But you get a whole lot of other stuff with that. So it's really up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. Do you guys have Word on the computers here at the library?
Because I know it's kind of expensive, and I'm on a budget right now, unfortunately. So, I did.
I also know that you can do like Word online, and it's a monthly charge.
Oh, you
It's
can do it monthly?
$7.99 a month, so,
And here,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they do. So this way, if you are on a budget, you can come here, or definitely, I have Word online on my laptop at home, my personal laptop. It's for $7, I'm okay every month.
And it's saved, you just save it to your computer then? so
Mhm.
then- okay.
They'll send you a link, you just download it, and then you need to be able to put in a credit card or a debit card, and they just take it out of my account every month.
Thank you.
What other questions?
When you have sort of in-between periods, I know the old rule was no blank spaces on your resume ever. But Sometimes you get in a spot where you're employed for a long time, but you gotta take a job. Right now, I'm in one of those spots. I've been there almost 6 months, so at this point in my mind, it's like, well, that's a little more than temporary, but where is that line between like, don't include it if it doesn't actually help your resume?
Here's what I'm understanding, is that most companies won't give out information. They won't, they'll say, yes, you worked here. They won't give out any other information. Were you employed on the books or were you contracting?
I transitioned to full-time there.
But
But
it started out as
It
a
started
contract?
as a temp, yeah.
I wouldn't say no to putting that down as a contract position. It lessens the questions, and if it started out as a contract position, I would go with that. But 6 months is a good period of time.
Yeah.
Did you move or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I moved in the spring after being.
If you
employed for
have a
while.
reason for it, yeah, just make sure that you can explain that. I have worked a lot of contract work, so I have, 10 companies listed on my resume, but they've all been, 8 months or less. And it looks like I jump around a lot, so I just combined it all. It was like contractor, and then I list the companies that I worked with. This way, it doesn't look like I'm a job hopper.
Especially if like, you knew it was like, oh, for the summer coming to hell, it was like, well, you didn't job hop. You fulfilled the commitment and then you moved to the next
Exactly.
one. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. What else, guys? So everybody feels confident about going home and putting together a resume or calling me and us writing a resume?
I actually have a question. What would you say is a good way to emphasize skills that show up earlier on your resume? Like, my example, I used to work in an office, like I had an office position for over 1.5 years, and when they restructured my department, I got laid off. I bounced around in temp work for a little and ended up going into the family business working in construction, and had to do that for multiple years. So when people see my resume, they see like 5 years of construction, the last 5 years, and then the office experience looks like a footnote, but it's like, no, I'd like to go back to working in an office. I didn't want to work construction for that long.
So how far back was that experience?
It was, at this point, it was in like 2013, 2014.
I would actually keep that on your resume. You can go back 10 years on your resume.
My issue with like in interviews or when people seem to look at my resume is they look at the most recent stuff and they're like, so like this is the kind of thing that you want to do, and I'm like, not really. Like I prefer that you look at me for like an inside role, or like this is just what I did for a while. It's not what I want to keep doing.
Mhm.
Like,
But you want to reflect the experience that you have working in an office. So having something on your resume from 2013 is not a bad thing. So just making it flow nicely and explaining why you left that. And so many companies have gone out of business, they've downsized. I mean, I think employers are a lot more tolerant than they used to be. You had to never have a gap. I don't think it's like that anymore because of what's happened, in the actual market in the recent past. So,
On a similar vein, I have, right now, my resume is structured most relevant experience and then by date after that. Is that something that could work to help him highlight his office skills too?
yeah, always start with your current position.
Even if it's, but like if you're going for, like if I was looking at nonprofit, but I'm an admin right now, if I put my most relevant nonprofit and then I did by date and had it like structured, relevant experience, other experience. Is that a way to get around that, so they get that far?
Actually, that's considered just confusing, because people then have to like go through dates and that kind of thing. So that's not something you want to be explaining in an interview. So always start with your current position and work backwards. When you have a face-to-face or a phone interview, you want to make sure you highlight that.
What if it doesn't get that far?
A phone interview?
Yeah, if people, like, if they're looking at your resume, they're like, oh, you don't have experience in this recently.
That's
like,
why you write a cover letter, so that you can highlight specifically that experience that relates to the job that you're applying for. So, you're looking for remote work, and in the same field, or?
I would like to do the same field, but I don't think it's really possible, because I kind of want to live in two different areas. So that's why I'm moving to that type of point. But being at a job for 18 years, now I'm only going to have 2 positions on my resume. Is it going to look like really empty?
And that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, I've got one position for 28 years.
Oh, okay.
28.5 for that matter.
Any college grads here? Make sure that is on your resume, and make sure it's prominent. It should be right under your objective.
We take off our graduating year, though, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you were here for what I said initially, which is everything personal off your resume.
It gives away your age.
Yep. And unfortunately,
Oh.
ageism still exists out there, so definitely. Okay, so we've covered cover letters, we've covered resumes, mock interviewing, which is actually a lot of fun, and it can help you relax when you're actually in a real live situation. Some companies will do Skype interviews. If you're in a situation like that, just make sure, at least from the waist up, that you're wearing something professional.
And that you're wearing something from the waist down.
I wore a t-shirt on my first Skype interview.
You did.
Oh, yeah. I said, I don't know how this works. He said, I'll walk you through it. I said, okay. I had on was it a Superman t-shirt?
Oh, that's funny. Any questions in regard to interviewing?
Yeah, but I was thinking on the resume, like, her and I have been at the same place for 28 years, so that kind of gives our age away. Too, so.
There's
Pretty much.
really not anything that you can,
Do it though.
yeah. I mean, don't be ashamed of your age, and
If anything,
Yeah.
I think that shows that you're dedicated.
oh
that's
yeah,
what I
yeah.
heard.
Loyalty to a
Yeah, I heard
company
that.
means something.
And should you put each detail of everything you did, like for the skills underneath that job, or?
There's a way to do it, and again, I'm partial to bullet points because you can,
Makes it easy to read.
yeah, that, and you can actually list things like in priority order, because I did this, 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 this. There are action words that, if you have Facebook and you go on to Abarca Career Counseling, I have a document that's got the 30 top action
What is it?
words.
Career counseling?
Abarca Career Coaching. So you want to use those action words to describe exactly what it is that you did there. Coordinated, handled, just words like that, so that they can see what level of, managed is another word. So that's very helpful. Again, with branding, everything that you have on social media, just go through it. Delete anything that could be deemed inappropriate by a potential employer. If you don't have a LinkedIn, let's get you one. I'm open for questions.
I have a question about Facebook. I have my profile set really private, like, I'm not wild or crazy, but there might be some things that they might see. Do they ask to become like friends or something to see your page?
No.
But it's really private, so there's nothing really to see.
Yeah, if you put it on the private setting, they may see things from a while ago, and usually I see this to like kids who are graduating from college, you know, who've got their college pictures up there. It's like, get rid of that. I like went through my son's stuff and I was like, oh no, that's gotta go, that's gotta go, that's gotta go. So, you know, use your best judgment. All of you need to put yourself in the shoes of the hiring manager. Would you wanna hire you based on what you're showing them?
For LinkedIn, I try to keep all of my contacts, people that I knew or worked with, but there are people that are contacting me or have been for the last 10 years that I don't even know. Why?
LinkedIn is an interesting beast. A lot of people on there are recruiters, so you'll get a lot of connections from recruiters.
I started to accept them.
But here's why people try to build their connections. Because when you place or put up a post, that goes out to all of your connections. So if you're looking for a position or you're trying to fill a position or whatever the case may be that you're posting that particular thing, the 500 people that you're connected with will see that. So the more connections you have specific to your industry, the more people will see who you are, what you do, what makes you tick, what are you posting about, that kind of thing. Make sense? I go into LinkedIn every day and I send out 10 invitations every day. So I'm one of those recruiters.
So how many contacts do you have?
I have over 4,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I post something, I know that it's gonna, I mean, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're not gonna see it, but the chances of someone seeing it that I need to see it are very good at that point. What else?
How do you decide on what your next career is?
Well, for my clients who have done exactly that, it's all about sitting down, figuring out where your heart is. Because you do want to be in a career that you enjoy. I mean, if you work so hard for a long time, why would you want to go to a job that you absolutely hate?
But it's the people that could make or break a job too.
And that's a really good point and something that you need to cover in interviews. Don't be afraid to, you are interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. Don't be afraid to ask about their turnover. If you go onto Glassdoor, is everybody familiar with Glassdoor? They will post the company and they will recruit people that have worked there before or work there currently and ask them about the company. They rate the company. Glassdoor.com. So they will rate the company and they will also talk about, they rate it in several, like the environment, salary, things of that nature. So if you're looking for a company that is good with, you know, letting you work from home every once in a while, that is interested in the fact that you have children and, you know, work-life balance is important to you, but the company that you're thinking about interviewing with has a half a star there, and everybody who's commented,
Put your likes in and then
and if everybody who's commented is like, oh, I work 22 hours a day, I can't get away from my desk, you know, we have to eat lunch at our, well, you might want to reconsider working for that company or interviewing with that company. So arming yourself with as much information as possible about the company. So in answer to your question, it is really all about doing some serious soul searching. And the best way to kind of get to your answer is, what don't you want to do? I don't want to sit at a desk all day. Okay, well, then that would
That limits
take,
a lot.
yeah, exactly. So you eliminate things, and then there are the deal breakers, and then there are things that, I guess I could live with that. And this way, you just narrow it down, and I should be a nurse. So.
What if you're older and you're, because I don't know if I want to sit at a desk anymore all the time, so.
Well, there's a lot of careers out there right now.
What if we don't have the education?
Well, it depends on what you're going for. Your experience is worth probably more than 2 bachelor's degrees. And that's the way I look at me personally. I mentioned that I don't have a degree, but you know what? I have a whole lot of experience that I can bring to the table.
experience and books.
So don't ever look at that as a negative. Anything else? No? Well, I would be thrilled for you guys to contact me. I'd love to work with you all. And here's to everybody getting the job they love.
One of those is probably more likely.
I want to thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. It's my first time here. I was nervous.
You didn't see them.
Well, please give me a call, send me an email. I'm available to
I have
everybody.
one more specific question.
Yeah.
I was offered a job. No, I wasn't offered a job. They have this position. But the first 2-3 months are going to be remote, and then I'll get hired into the company. The company hasn't moved here. Now, my question is my work worth something, and then my house worth something?
Yes. And that's something you should talk to your tax person about. But you can write off like a certain amount of square feet, your phone that you use, part of your internet bill, things along that line. So definitely talk to your tax person. All right, well, thank you all for coming.